The push for better teacher pay. Coming up tonight, the Durham Association of Educators is meeting what they're asking for.
We're jumping headfirst into summer. I'll show you the toasty timeline for temperatures this weekend.
Raleigh's hotel renaissance. Downtown Raleigh is betting millions on a hotel boom. More traffic, more visitors. WRAL investigates who's really cashing in.
The military meets with Duke Energy. Educators meet with county leaders. And Ashley Rowe meets with people in charge of a new hotel in downtown Raleigh. Lots to talk about tonight. So get in on the conversation. You got your phone with you. I know you do. So use it. Send us an email, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. What should the news be covering? Send us some questions, your comments, and feedback. First up tonight, a new chapter in the back and forth between lawmakers and teachers. This time, the story is in Durham. A new budget deal with the Capitol proposes an average 8% raise for teachers, but many of them say that just is not enough. WRAL's Heidi Kirk joins us live from Durham, where educators are meeting about this. Heidi, what is the goal of the meeting right now? What are they hoping to get from the state and county leaders?
Well, Dan, it's a really good question, and I'll let you know that that meeting's been going on for about an hour now, right here behind me, behind those church doors. And let me tell you what, it is a packed house. Now, you'll look at that big sign. It is hosted by the Durham Association of Educators. And if you don't know what that is, I'll tell you, it's a member-led teachers union. But the message is aligned with what we've heard from other educators across the state. Now, go ahead and take a look at what it looks like inside the church here. Now, this meeting comes just days after North Carolina lawmakers reached a deal on an 8% average pay raise for teachers next school year. Now, the Durham Association of Educators is asking the county for an additional several dollars, taking the district's minimum wage from $17.15 per hour to $19.22. Now, right now, Durham County's recommended budget does include some new funding for public schools, so that's good news, they say. It amounts to about $10.9 million of an increase. But some teachers still say that's just not a livable wage.
We're just trying to live every day, not even live beyond our means. We're trying to put food on the table, keep roofs over our head, transportation, providing for our children, clothing for our children, shoes and things like that. And so a struggle, a challenge, that is, those words just don't even cover the feeling that we experience every day.
And for about the last 30 minutes, we've been hearing from a number of teachers, educators, school staff, all kind of telling some of those personal stories about what they go through on a daily basis. There's also 2 county commissioners in the room there. A lot of the teachers directing their messaging directly to them, saying that they want to be sure that they are considering them as they go through those budget negotiations over the next few weeks. Dan?
You know, Heidi, listening to the woman you interviewed saying that a struggle or a challenge doesn't even come close to describing what they're going through, that they can barely make ends meet. Give us some more insight on that, what you're hearing from some folks.
Well, those are some of the hardest stories that we hear. You know, they are describing their situation is just something that weighs on them day in and day out. They're spending their own money inside their classrooms buying basic supplies like pencils and paper. They say they barely make enough money to support their families, relying on their husbands or wives with another job, sometimes even signing up for additional jobs themselves. They just say it's something that is not sustainable whatsoever. And of course, we're going to have more of those personal stories from teachers, substitutes, the list goes on and on, coming up tonight at 10 and 11 on WRAL.
All right.
Heidi Kirk, WRAL News, live in Durham.
You got it. Heidi, thank you so much. We'll see you a bit later tonight. So let's get to a story that's happening right now at 7 o'clock. A fire that is burning at a tire recycling facility in Harnett County. Sky 5 over that scene, and Grace Holland is in the live center getting the details for us. Grace.
Dan, if you look right here behind me, you can see these fire trucks that are spraying a lot of water on all of this fire that is burning. This is at the Liberty Tire Recycling Facility in Harnett County. It's on McCoy Town Road for people that live in that area, southeast of Cameron. We're still working to learn more about what started this fire. WRAL's Willie Danley is headed to the scene as well to see what he can find out on the ground.
notoriously difficult fires to put out. Thank you to Grace. Now, if you're just getting to the news tonight, let's get you caught up. Here are the 5 things you need to know right now. A new budget proposal in Cary tonight. The interim town manager presented a plan for a $573 million budget. Some of that money would pay for 2 new positions to enhance financial oversight. As you remember, last year, Sean Stiegel resigned after questions about how he was spending the town's money. The proposal also includes a property tax increase, about $20 more per month on average. The SBI is investigating a disturbance at Rocky Mount City Hall involving 2 council members. Witnesses telling WRAL that Charles Robertson and Andre Knight got into an actual fight. No injuries reported, but the building went into a brief lockdown. WRAL reaching out to the city council and the SBI. We're waiting to hear back. The NTSB saying a pilot error is to blame for the UNC Health plane crash in 2024. That report saying that the pilot did not have a stabilized approach and didn't maintain proper speed. That caused the plane to stall and crash. 2 people, including the pilot, were hurt. The state is considering some enforcement actions after more than 1 million gallons of sewage spilled in the Briar Creek area. The spill was tied to the RDU runway expansion. Officials say that the wastewater was from a pipe failure and crews did not properly dispose of it. Republican lawmakers say more state money will go toward the planned children's hospital in Apex. It's a $3 billion project. UNC Health and Duke Health, they are partnering. They'll cover most of that. The state could provide up to $425 million in additional support. Senate leaders could push for even more state funding next year. They see this as an opportunity to create thousands of jobs. We just couldn't wait to get to the quote of the day. We have to be focusing on all 3 at the same time. There it is. It is your quote of the day, and it's coming from the principal cyber advisor to Secretary of the Army. And he's talking about all the different things that the military has to keep their eye on. Cyber threats, terrorist threats, drone attacks. They can't afford to let these things affect their operations, and neither can the groups in charge of our critical infrastructure, the power, the water, the roads. That's why top Army leaders met today with private companies and local leaders to find ways to protect ourselves. WRL's Flynn Snyder has the story.
Army leaders say the goal of this summit was to create a playbook of best practices and identify obstacles to keep installations like Fort Bragg ready to respond. It wasn't just Army leaders at the table. Staff from utilities like Duke Energy and local government leaders took part.
The Army has approximately 288 camps, posts, and stations, and the overwhelming majority of them rely on privately owned utilities. Disruption of these services can interfere with our ability to move forces and equipment in a time of need.
Private companies joining forces with the Army to learn from past challenges and simulate real-world threats. Leaders say the summit focused on situations related to the war in Ukraine and takeaways from Operation Epic Fury in the Middle East.
We work with these partners to start conversations that we think will have a deep impact on our nation's security.
Army leaders say 3 main threats came out through scenarios studied at the summit. They are cybersecurity concerns, terror threats, and drone attacks.
We can't neglect one or ignore one at the expense of others. We have to be focusing on all 3 at the same time.
And military officials say that partnering with these private companies will help bolster defense critical infrastructure. They're hoping to scale these takeaways at all Army installations. Flynn Snyder, WRAL News, Fort Bragg.
Thank you to Flynn. Army leaders say the summit was held after renewed attention from the White House on threats to defense critical infrastructure. Still ahead, why is Raleigh building so many new hotels? Have you noticed this? It's not like any of us are going to spend much time in them. I live here. But it's not about that. It's about money. We're going to explain how these hotels will pay for upgrades that we will all get to enjoy. Kat?
A little chilly tonight. Lows dip in the 40s. And then we have 5 days in the 90s coming up. I'll walk you through all the wild temperature swings coming up.
If you've driven through downtown Raleigh lately, you might have noticed the huge construction project right by the Martin Marietta Center. It's time for a developing story. Right now, it is a lot of dirt, bulldozers, cranes, and trucks. But before you know it, this will be the site of a 600-room Omni hotel. And it's going to be fancy. A resort-style spa with hot tubs, steam rooms, saunas, and cold plunges. A sports bar with an outdoor patio and golf simulator. A coffee shop. A rooftop pool with a restaurant. and you might never use any of it. You might not spend a single night in that hotel, but you, me, everyone in Raleigh will get to be a part of how it transforms our downtown. A WRAL analysis found that downtown Raleigh is going through a bit of a hotel renaissance. Take a look at this. Between 1969 and 2019, a 50-year stretch, downtown Raleigh gained just 6 hotels. Since then, 5 more have popped up. We've about doubled the number of hotels in just 6 years, and at least 2 more are on the way. The Downtown Raleigh Alliance says hotel occupancy last year was about 68%. That's higher than the national average and higher than comparable cities in our part of the country. To bring the Omni to town, Raleigh is putting up $75 million. Sounds like a lot. And we got a good question about that from a viewer named John. He wrote into 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. A new hotel company gets a $75 million incentive to build in downtown Raleigh. Why can't the hotel charge the tourists and business people a bit more to stay at the hotel? John, thank you for the question. It is fair to ask, why does downtown Raleigh need another hotel, let alone one that's taking millions of taxpayer dollars? I spent a lot of time trying to answer that question. I spoke to the mayor, the city tourism people, the Downtown Raleigh Alliance people, the Omni Hotel people. Those people all had a lot to say, but to boil it down, this all comes down to money. It always does, right? Think of it kind of like a cycle of revenue. The convention center is one of the biggest sources of tourism revenue for Raleigh. Back in 2017, Visit Raleigh did a big study on this, and they concluded that they should expand the convention center. More space, more events, more money. But where will people stay? The Marriott City Center on Fayetteville Street was built in 2008. It has 400 hotel rooms. Tourism officials say that's not enough. Enter the Omni. It'll be just down the street from the Marriott. This will be the new convention center hotel to support all the new events after its expansion. Which brings us back to the revenue cycle. When people come visit Raleigh for a convention or for anything else, they pay a tax on their hotel stay, a 6% occupancy tax. That money goes to Wake County, and it is specifically earmarked for investment in arts, culture, and sports. The occupancy tax is the reason we have things like the North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences, Five County Stadium, Marbles Kids Museum, the North Carolina Museum of Art, and Wake Med Soccer Park. The occupancy tax is also helping pay for the Raleigh Convention Center's expansion, and is also helping pay for the relocation of Red Hat Amphitheater. It's going to be moving across the street so that it can hold more people. And then you have the renovations at the Lenovo Center. The occupancy tax is helping fund that, too. And remember, there's plans to turn that whole area into a big sports and entertainment complex, upgrading the experience when you go to a concert or a Canes game. So this hotel boom, some of which you're paying for, is part of a much bigger picture. It's another step toward growth, a path Raleigh has been on for decades. It's a step toward attracting visitors and offering a better experience to the people who live here, including the ones who have watched all those little steps along the way. Tell me what you think about this. Are you excited for the future of downtown Raleigh? Do you prefer it to stay the way it is? What should the city be focused on with the money that it gets from the occupancy tax? Let us know. Email 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. Tell us what's on your mind, and we'll talk about it right here at 7 o'clock.
Great stuff, Ashley. I don't think anything's staying the way it is, not nowadays. Ashley also did a great story on this for our 6 o'clock news. It got all the interviews and fancy graphics and all the things that you like, and it provides a little bit more details on the Omni Hotel project and how we got to this point. So you can find that on the WRAL YouTube page. Just search WRAL on YouTube and then search hotel once you get on our page. Let's turn now to another episode of Drought Daily, where we answer your drought questions, at least until this whole thing's over. Tonight we have a two-parter. The first one is from a viewer named Billy. So here's part one. Rocky Mount was the first city in the WRAL viewing area to be in an extreme drought category. And he wants to know, why do we need only 10 inches of rain to come out of the drought when about every other place needs 14 or 15 inches of rain? It's a good question, and here to help us answer it, because I am not qualified, meteorologist Kat Campbell. So, different places need different amounts right now, right?
Right, and the drought category is not just determined by rainfall. There are many other factors that go into it: local stream levels, local rivers and lakes, and on top of that, things like soil moisture. So Rocky Mount, he's absolutely right, was one of the first spots to be added to the extreme drought, but water levels there are higher than what we're seeing right now around Wake County, which is Jordan Lake, of course.
Right. So let's get to part two of Billy's question. He writes, did the low number of tropical systems in central and eastern North Carolina in 2025, so last year, affect our water table early on? And, you know, Kat, he's right. We didn't have the same type of tropical activity in our area last year as we typically can, or at least it wasn't the same as like a year where we have a lot of activity. Did that play a role?
Well, it did in some ways and not in others. So we had Chantal move through, and that brought record flooding to Jordan Lake last year. Of course, it didn't affect Rocky Mount in the same way, but Jordan Lake had an excess of water heading into the fall. And I would say no, because we also had a record number of flash flood reports in our area last summer. I'm sure, as many of you remember, even in Rocky Mount, unfortunately, we had deadly flash flooding in that area.
All right. Thank you to Kat, and thank you to the emails coming from all of you at home. This has been another edition of Drought Daily. Keep those emails coming. 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. We'll continue answering them. Now, we hand it over to Kat for the full forecast because we have a chilly night ahead, followed by a big warm-up.
Oh, yeah. We've got a little bit of everything on our 7-day forecast. No big updates to the drought monitor. No big rain chances coming our way either. So, you know, the weekend forecast looks amazing, but I know we need the rain, anywhere from about 10 to 14 inches across our area. And we've got about 1/100th of an inch of rain. Almost nothing over the next 7 days until we get to next Thursday. That may end up being our best chance for rain. Only a 20% chance Sunday and Monday. In the meantime, get out your jackets again. 45 is the low tonight. It's going to be feeling more like early April instead of mid-May.
A piece of North Carolina history that's nearly as old as our country was just discovered hanging on a woman's wall in New York. It's a sketch. It may not look like much, but it was actually one of just 12 artifacts that historians call eyewitness accounts, meaning that they were not created after the fact, but in the moment. And now we have cameras for that sort of thing, but during the American Revolution, not so much. What's amazing about this is not only that it still exists after all this time, but that its owner found it at an antique shop, picked it up on a whim in the 1970s. The right person happened to see it in her home and realized what she actually had, this one-of-a-kind sketch of a brigade in George Washington's army.
And it said, an exact representation of a wagon belonging to the North Carolina Brigade of Continental Troops, which passed through Phila, and then the mat had cut off the rest of the inscription. And so that shocked me. North Carolina Brigade, Continental Troops, Phila is probably referring to Philadelphia.
So we really just scratched the surface here of this story. It's quite well done also, don't you think? Tomorrow afternoon at 5:30, WRAL will air an episode of the Tar Heel Traveler about this, right, including how the researcher identified the artist who drew the sketch. It's quite amazing. Tune in and check that out. In the meantime, I want to get to some of the feedback from some of you watching at home tonight. I found this to be a lot of fun. Phil wrote in and said, my grandma called weather like today's cool spell blackberry winter. It usually comes around the time blackberries are ready or are in bloom. So I love these types of emails because they remind us that before the radars and the apps and the updated forecasts and the meteorologists and WRAL News and all that stuff, people still knew the weather, right? They watched things like the blackberry bushes and when they bloomed. They paid attention to the wind and the insects that were out there. The feel of the morning, and it's going to be a cool one tomorrow, blackberry winter. Basically the Appalachian folks' meteorology. Now, I will say the dual Doppler radar is a bit more accurate, and I'm glad it's around, but I appreciate the old ways and the email tonight. Keep sending them. 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. Great to have you with us tonight. We'll see you back here tomorrow.